Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was 29, running on coffee and grief, standing at my father's graveside on a cold Tuesday in late March, shivering in a suit I hadn't worn since my last job interview. 7 days later, I stood at an altar with Jenna, while a photographer told me to smile, like I meant it. Her mother didn't flinch, her dad didn't blink, and nobody, not one person, asked if we should wait. My name is Jonathan Reed. I'm 29. I live in Riverside, California. Quick note, before we continue, share in the comments which city or country you're listening from. It helps us see where you're tuning in from and figure out the best time to post new stories. Thanks. Now let's get into it. I remember Eva Hollister, Jenna's mother, gripping my hand at the rehearsal dinner like she was taking a pulse, her rings cold, voice soft. "You'll want a proper suit for tomorrow," she said, eyes on my cuffs like they offended her. I just nodded, half listening, mostly thinking about how my dad was 6 feet underground while I was standing in a hotel banquet hall getting fashion notes from a woman who still used the word presentation like it was a verb. Then came Hank, Jenna's father, quizzing me on wine regions like I'd just stepped off a Greyhound bus. "Burgundy or Bordeaux?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Cabernet's fine," I said, dumb answer apparently. Jenna laughed a little too loud, like I was her charity project. She looked perfect, and completely distant. When I asked if we could delay things, just a few weeks, she said postponing would signal instability. What it signaled to me was that nothing, absolutely nothing, about my family mattered in her world. It was just me and my younger brother Brandon now. I was working steady at a regional consulting shop. Not flashy, but it paid the bills. Before that, I spent a couple years on the floor of a warehouse, hauling pallets and swallowing pride. At night, I painted. Bridges, cranes, concrete, real stuff. I signed it all under a fake name, J. Blake Lake. Nobody knew. I kept a P.O. box for correspondence, paid cash for canvas, and tucked the finished paintings in a buddy's storage unit out in Paris. I didn't talk about it, especially not around Jenna's people. The wedding reception was basically a wine lecture with a dance floor. Eva told me I seemed earnest, like she was reviewing a waiter. Hank said Jenna had married well, and then asked if I planned to level up my wardrobe for client events. I smiled and poured another glass of whatever they were pouring. That first night as husband and wife. Jenna rehung every piece of art in our apartment, took down my thrift store finds, framed cityscapes I liked, and put up a glossy print of a yacht. "It photographs better," she said. I didn't argue. A week later, I asked if we could delay the honeymoon so I could check in on Brandon. He hadn't been eating right, and I just wanted a day or two. Jenna said postponing would disturb momentum. Her exact words. I let it go. Hated myself the entire plane ride to Santa Barbara. Back home, I slid a used lockbox under the guest room dresser and labeled it tax folders in all caps. Inside, just a few provenance slips, each with a handwritten catalog number, JL001, JL002. Looking back now, it was all right there. How she moved fast and never paused. How her family spoke in critiques, not conversations. But the biggest red flag? If someone won't shift a wedding off your father's funeral week, they will never move anything for you. And I should have walked. But instead, I picked up the thrift store frames she'd stacked in the hallway, carried them to the car, and drove them to Goodwill without saying a word. I pulled up to Dale's frame shop after dark, headlights bouncing off the cracked stucco and a fading closed sign on the door. The whole place smelled like sawdust and old shellac. He handed me a key and pointed to the back room without small talk. "Don't leave glue on my table," he muttered, walking away before I could thank him. That was fine by me. Back there, I set up like a guy working the night shift at his own secret job. Saw on the left, clamps on the pegboard, printer wired to a used laptop I'd wiped clean. I brought my own light bulbs too. Warm white, the kind that makes oil paint look deeper than it really is. Jenna never came by. She said I needed optimizing. Her word. Shorter hair, tighter shirts, shinier shoes. We had a whole Saturday dedicated to looking successful. I stood in front of a mirror while she circled me like a stylist on a deadline, pinching fabric and checking angles. She didn't say I looked good, just said, "Now you won't embarrass me next to clients." Eva loved the new look. At dinner she asked, "Do boys from your background get bored without targets to chase?" I stabbed a green bean and didn't answer. At work, I kept it quiet. No one knew what I was doing at night. During lunch breaks, I sorted catalog slips in my car and texted Mary when I finished a piece. She handled the gallery admin at Fenway & Co. and never once asked for my real name. The first time I walked into that gallery, I handed her an envelope of photos and thought she'd laugh. She didn't. Just asked, "What's the artist's name?" I told her, J. Blake Lake. She wrote it down without blinking. Mary was efficient, kind in that mechanical way that doesn't need small talk. She logged sizes, dates, and titles. She noticed when I misspelled viaduct on the back of one canvas and handed it back to fix. She ran a clean system, spreadsheet for me, copy for Lida Fenway, the gallery owner. Lida was different, no patience, no filter. First time she saw my pricing, she snorted. "Are you trying to pay bills or apologize for existing?" she said. Then she doubled every price, told me to grow up, and added, "You want respect? Stop selling like you owe someone rent." She didn't care who I was. She cared that I didn't flinch when she pushed. We set up consignment slips with hidden codes that pointed to my P.O. box. Mary showed me how to make inked certificates, taught me to keep duplicates. "Provenance saves artists from thieves," she said. "Start now or get burned later." I did everything by the book. Got a second P.O. box downtown, filed for an LLC under Blake Lake Projects through a quiet friend-of-a-friend attorney Mary trusted. I made copies of every receipt, logged every date, and tucked everything in that same lockbox marked tax folders. Meanwhile, Jenna kept dragging me toward her world. She called twice in 2 weeks, asking if I could make it to her firm's client mixer. When I said I had a deliverable due, she didn't skip a beat. "Jonathan, standing around is a deliverable if you do it with purpose," she said. I said I'd try. I didn't. Sunday dinner with Eva and Hank turned into a panel interview. Hank asked how I planned to provide for a family on a junior analyst salary. I said I'd grow. He tapped the table twice. Growth starts with exposure, not spreadsheets. Everyone nodded like he'd quoted scripture. I went home and printed another certificate of authenticity. That first month, 2 small pieces sold out of Fenway & Co. Mary called to say, "Check's here." I picked it up myself, cashier's check for $2,140. I took the long way home just to stare at it. That check felt cleaner than anything I'd earned since my dad passed. I logged the sale under JL005 and JL006, signed the slips, filed them with the consignment copies, and added the receipt for stretcher bars and primer to my expense folder. Back at the frame shop, I upgraded the light fixture and put tennis balls under the sawhorse legs to dampen the echo. Dale never asked what I was doing back there, just told me to stay out of the finishing room and not block the emergency exit. I painted until midnight, slept in turpentine, then woke up and put on a pressed shirt. Jenna still called me Ernest, like it was something I needed to outgrow. At her next firm brunch, she introduced me to a partner's wife as a creative problem solver, then turned back to the conversation before I could say a word. The art, the name, the process, it all lived separate. It had to. When I walked back into Dale's the next night, I shut the door behind me, clicked on the bulb above the workbench, and reached for the canvas I'd left drying. Still tacky. Good. That meant I wasn't done yet. The paint hadn't dried on JL029 when Brandon called. "Bro, you're not going to believe this." They said yes. His voice cracked halfway through the sentence like he couldn't keep it steady. I got the job. I sat on the floor of Dale's back room, rag in hand, a roll of craft paper across my lap. "You serious?" "Junior strategist," he said. "Official title. Jenna said I'll report to Martha, but she'll mentor me through some of the pitch work. Can you believe that?" I could. Jenna didn't do halfway. She didn't do favors either, not unless she could reshape them first. She dressed him for the interview like she was styling a mannequin. Her tailor, her shoes, even his haircut was from her salon. He needs to fit the environment, she said, waving off my question about whether he could just be himself. And if I do this, she added, he can't embarrass me with casual energy. That was Jenna code for don't be weird. Brandon started the next Monday. Showed up on my doorstep in a tailored navy suit, hair slicked back, holding a coffee he could barely afford. I think I look like someone else, he said. I slapped his shoulder and told him he looked like someone who had a job. He called every night that first week, buzzing. Said his ideas landed in 2 client sessions. One guy even told him he had a voice. He finally felt seen. I told him to keep it clean. Document everything. Don't flirt with coworkers. Don't text outside work hours. Jenna's world wasn't built for free spirits. It was a glass box. You get one smudge, and you're out. At Sunday dinner, Eva gave him a nod like he was a student who'd finally passed algebra. At least he's employable, she said. Hank leaned back in his chair and studied Brandon like a mechanic, eyeing a part that might not last. That nervous vibe might be good for creativity, bad for reliability, he said. The whole table chuckled like it was sage advice. Brandon laughed too, but I saw his jaw clench for half a second. Jenna started looping him into late brainstorms, coffee meetings, marketing mixers, posted selfies with him at cocktail lounges, captioned with things like creative chaos with my favorite mind. She told me one night, he brings warmth to the room. People trust him. He's raw, but magnetic. It didn't sit right. Something in the way she said it, like he was a project or a pet she'd trained. I kept my mouth shut, went to Dale's after work, framed JL023 through JL029. Lita had given me feedback on edition sizes, keep the numbers low for scarcity. Mary reminded me to sign the edges for authentication. I upgraded my certificate template and backed everything up twice. My day job still paid the bills. My manager, Paul, started joking about the artsy smell on my jackets. I laughed it off, showed up by 9, logged my hours, pretended I wasn't picturing underpaint drying between conference calls. Jenna started nudging my social life like it was a campaign to manage. Babe, we're not 20 anymore. Can we aim for more aligned company? She meant fewer of my warehouse buddies, more couples who posted vacation recaps with hashtag bundles. She picked out a blazer for me, gray with stiff lapels that scratched the back of my neck. It's elevating, she said. I wore it to one mixer. That was enough. Brandon's texts got longer for a while. Updates on campaign meetings, stupid jokes about office snacks, stuff that reminded me of when we were teenagers. Then they got shorter. Working late, again. Pitch tomorrow. My stomach's trash. Your lady's intense. That last one came with a nervous emoji. I called him, told him to breathe, log his hours, and keep work at work. He said, "Yeah, I hear you." But his voice was tight. That weekend I found a half-finished sketch in my frame corner. I didn't remember starting it. Mary came by the shop that Monday to drop off more consignment forms. She saw my stack of finished frames and ran her finger along one edge. "You're building volume. That's good. But don't overproduce. Let the market breathe." I nodded. Got it. She paused before she left. And watch what comes in through the front door. Just because it's family doesn't mean it's safe. I didn't ask what she meant. Back at work, I got a performance review. Solid marks, no raise. Paul said I was dependable but quiet. Said it like it might be a warning. That night, Jenna brought home sushi and sat across from me scrolling her phone. "Brandon needs polish," she said. "But he's pliable. Clients like him." I said, "He's not a lump of clay." She didn't look up. I didn't say he was, but potential needs shaping. Otherwise it just spills everywhere. I stared at her for a second. She never talked like that about me. Brandon stopped texting for a couple days. Then I got one at 1:30 in the morning. Still at the office. Brains fried. I think I'm just chasing approval at this point. I typed out a long response, deleted it, sent. Take care of yourself. Seriously. I didn't sleep that night. By the end of the week, he looked thinner, eyes jumpy, called me after another pitch meeting and said, "I think I peaked already, man. This place is nonstop." I told him again to keep work at work. What I didn't say, because I hadn't figured it out yet, was that intensity isn't neutral. Not in a place like Jenna's firm. Not when your value is how well you fit the picture. That Friday, I walked into Dale's shop, cut fresh backing boards for JL 030 through JL 032, and braced a canvas with extra edge glue. I didn't know it yet, but I'd need those pieces to hold up under more than just their own weight. I labeled the canvas JL 033 and stacked it in the bin next to two others still tacky to the touch. That night, Mary called. "Lita wants to push you into next Thursday's show. 12 pieces, industrial theme." I leaned back against the frame wall, heart thudding. That's fast. She said your pace is fast. Let it match. I said yes. We picked pieces the next morning, mostly cranes under sodium lights, scaffolded underpasses, and a long, rust-colored bridge with brushwork I didn't remember finishing. Mary hung them herself, precise as a lab tech, then handed me a checklist with red dot stickers tucked in the back. She leaned in close and said, "No discounts. Remember what we agreed." The room filled before 6. I kept my cap low and stayed near the back wall. Everyone smelled like expensive cologne and used words like palette and movement like they were testing passwords. No one recognized me. That was the point. By 7:45, 7 red dots hugged the wall tags, and Mary whispered that 2 people had asked about commissions. Lita walked by once, didn't say anything, just raised one eyebrow and tapped her clipboard. I slipped out the side door around 9 and went straight to Dale's. Locked up, turned off the lights, and just stood there breathing glue and varnish. A month later, one of my bridge pieces landed in a regional auction out in Bakersfield. Estimate was $1,800. I didn't watch it live. Just checked the result the next morning while brushing my teeth. It hammered at $5,700. My phone buzzed before I even left the bathroom. Dealers I didn't know. A guy asking if I did exclusive runs. Another offering a cash bundle for early rights. I didn't reply. I called Mary. "Don't get chatty," she said. "That's the noise. Let me filter it." She came in the next day with a fresh 3-ring binder. "Provenance binder," she said, flipping it open. Inside were printed sales sheets, catalog slips, consignment copies, date-stamped photos of me holding each piece. "We track it all now," she said. "No exceptions. Your name might be fake, but your record won't be." She showed me how to write invoices that told a story. Title, medium, dimensions, and a short description that hinted at context without sounding like a diary. Lita warned me, "If someone offers you cash under the table, run the other direction. Dirty buyers drag you down." I listened. I wanted clean books. I paid for a sturdier cutter, a ream of acid-free backing, and foam core in bulk, just over $3,000 total, logged as Blake Lake Projects, LLC operating expenses. I paid sales tax like a man raised by a rule book. While I was stacking clean receipts, Jenna was building a campaign at work for her firm's charity gala. Big names, flashy concept. She posted teaser clips online with soft-focus drone footage and her voiceover. Brandon pitched a gritty side campaign. Authentic City was the hook. Grainy subway shots, rain on steel. The client loved it. I felt proud of him. Quietly. From across the street. At brunch, Eva tilted her head toward one of my framed auction scans and said, "You know, your mechanic scenes would be better if they had coastal serenity." Hank chimed in without looking up from his mimosa. "The only art that matters is what hangs in Palm Beach. Everything else is therapy." I nodded, smiled, and cleared the table before Jenna could open her mouth. Work got quieter. A rail client renewed their contract because, quote, "This guy actually gets what steel costs." My manager offered me a title bump. No raise. I said sure. More peace, more time to paint. A week after the show, a collector emailed Mary asking if J. Blake Lake did studio visits. She replied, CCing me. Blake values privacy. He appreciates the interest. I followed with one line. Thank you for understanding. It wasn't fear. It was control. I needed the boundary. That auction result stayed in my head longer than it should have. I didn't brag. Didn't tell Jenna. Just scanned the page, labeled it AU001, and slid it behind the consignment folder in the lockbox under tax folders. That was my bell. Not a celebration, just a tone shift. Like something was starting and I didn't need permission anymore. Jenna didn't ask how the show went. She was deep in gala meetings and calendar invites. One night I asked, "Do you want to see some of the new pieces?" She looked up from her tablet and said, "I think it's great that you have a creative outlet, but no one needs to turn every hobby into a second job." I said nothing. The next day, I added certificate codes, CF009 through CF021, and triple-checked the dates. At Dale's, I picked up a used drawer set for mounting sheets and labeled each one with black tape. That Friday, Brandon called on the walk back from a rooftop meeting, said he nailed a pitch and then got a weird sideways look from Martha. Like she was trying to gauge something, he said. I asked if he'd said anything off script. He said no, then paused. Jenna stepped in, smoothed it over. She always does. I asked, "You good with that?" He laughed, but it wasn't full. "Yeah, I guess I'm the warmth, right?" That night I stretched 3 new canvases, gessoed all of them in one pass, and wrote JL034 through JL036 in pencil on the backs. No celebration, just work. That was how I kept score. I left Dale's late that night, the sky a low bruise of gray and orange from the refinery lights. I was tired but wired, that kind of buzz where your brain won't power down. Jenna had texted earlier. "Don't forget to leave the extra keys in my car." It was her firm's late brainstorm night, so I figured she'd still be at the office. I swung by her building on the way home, keys in hand, planning to slide them through her cracked window like I'd done a dozen times before. That's when I saw her. She was in the lot, under one of those harsh sodium lamps that make skin look the color of sandpaper. Brandon stood across from her, hands in his pockets, tie loosened, that nervous grin he used to get before Dad scolded him for something stupid. Jenna's laugh cut through the air, sharp, bright, real, the kind she didn't use on me anymore. Then she put her hand on his chest. He froze. She didn't. When they parted, she kissed him. Not a family peck. A real one. I stood there like an idiot behind a row of hedges, heart going like I'd been punched. A car idled somewhere nearby, low hum, steady rhythm. My brother looked lit up and terrified at the same time. Jenna looked fine, like she'd just checked an item off her list. I waited until they went inside, then walked back to my car and sat there gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I didn't storm in, didn't yell, didn't call anyone. I drove around the block twice, pulled over in a grocery lot, and wrote down the time, the date, and exactly where I'd parked. Then I went home, dropped the keys on the counter, and stared at our ceiling fan until the blades blurred. 2 days later, I got a message from Cole Benson, a guy I knew from church league softball, who also happened to work with Brandon at the firm. He wrote, "Need to talk. Quiet spot." We met at a diner off the freeway, the kind of place where the coffee smells burnt even before it's poured. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept, eyes red, jaw clenched. "Before I show you this, I need to say, I shouldn't have taken it," he said, sliding his phone across the table. On the screen was a photo. Jenna, sitting on Brandon's lap in a glass-walled office, her hand on the back of his neck, his face buried against her shoulder. It wasn't blurry. It wasn't questionable. It was proof. Cole rubbed his temples. I saw it from the hallway. Snapped it without thinking. I deleted the original from my phone right after. That's the only copy. You should probably email it to yourself and then get rid of it. I didn't say much. Just asked if anyone else had seen it. He shook his head. Martha doesn't care about office stuff unless it hits a client. But this? Feels like a saw, man. Like you're both walking toward it, and no one's shouting stop. I told him thank you. Meant it. After he left, I sat there staring at the Formica table, then forwarded the photo to my personal email and deleted the message chain. When I got home, I opened a new folder in my lockbox, labeled it D01 through D06. Inside went the parking lot notes, the photo printout, copies of Jenna's travel calendar with Brandon's campaign sprints highlighted, and a short page of my own notes. Dates, times, context. Nothing emotional, just clean data. That night, Jenna came home late, heels clicking like metronomes on the tile. She smelled like a hotel bar, citrus and gin, and someone else's cologne mixed in. "Long night," she said, tossing her purse down. "Yeah," I said. "How's Brandon doing?" She paused just long enough for the air to stretch. "He's finally got purpose," she said, smiling faintly. "It's nice seeing him become something." Like she was his savior. I nodded. Good for him. She kissed my cheek, grabbed a sparkling water, and started talking about some client dinner. I just watched her mouth move and thought about that photo. When she went to bed, I walked to the frame corner, clamped a half-finished cityscape, and started trimming edges. My hands shook just enough that I had to stop twice. I wrote JL041 on the back in pencil, pressing harder than I should have. Each letter dug a little deeper into the wood. The next morning, I brought the piece to Mary's office. She was logging inventory, hair tied up, eyes sharp. She looked at me once and said, "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She set down her pen. "You're off. Sit down." I did. She poured 2 cups of coffee, one for each of us, and waited. I didn't talk. She didn't push. Finally, she said, "Whatever it is, document everything. Don't set anything on fire you might need later." I looked up. I think hurt people make stupid choices," she said. "Don't do that." Lyda walked in right then, folder under her arm, heard the tail end of it, and leaned against the doorframe. "And while you're documenting everything," she said, "raise your prices again. You're moving inventory like a fool in a hurry." I smirked. "You trying to cheer me up?" "I'm trying to keep your work from looking like a liquidation sale," she said. They left me there for a minute after that, just sitting on the stool, hands flat on my knees, breathing through whatever was clawing at my chest. That night, Jenna texted me a photo from her firm's rooftop, city skyline, her hand holding a glass, Brandon in the background half blurred. Caption, "Team Recharge." I saved it, printed it, labeled it D07, then I locked it away with the rest. When I finally turned off the lights in Dale's shop, the last thing I heard was the faint hum of the fridge compressor and the sound of my own breathing slowing down. I wasn't calm. I was collecting. And I knew exactly what that meant. The photo, the folders, the names. I had it all stacked and labeled, but I wasn't dumb. I knew paper only matters if you show it to someone who knows what to do with it. So I booked a consult with a guy named Trent Whitlow, a divorce and business attorney in Moreno Valley. I found him through a recommendation from the gallery's accountant, who said he lives for clean paper. He wore corduroy in summer and didn't offer a handshake. I sat across from him in a small beige office that smelled like printer ink and breath mints. He stirred powdered creamer into gas station coffee and said the same thing 3 times before we finished the first cup. Paper wins. I pulled out my binder, catalog numbers, consignment slips, P.O. box leases, invoices, art sales, hardware receipts, and every certificate I'd logged through Blake Lake projects. He flipped through it like a priest reading sins. Then he asked 12 dull questions about dates, sequence, control of accounts. Only smiled once, when he saw how my catalog numbers lined up with the tax forms. "You've been doing this like a guy who saw it coming," he said. I didn't reply. Trent tapped his pen against the binder. "Keep sales separate. Never mingle LLC money with joint accounts. Pay taxes through the company. File quarterly. You're an artist and a vendor. That's 2 lanes of proof. You stay in those lanes, you don't crash." While I sat in his office prepping the financial side, Jenna's firm was unraveling across town. Their big charity gala campaign, the one she'd built with Brandon, hit a pothole. Some intern leaked a Slack thread with flirt vibes between Brandon and Jenna. Wasn't explicit, but tone matters when there's money involved. A key donor backed out. Fast. Martha called a reset meeting. Nobody said it was a scolding, but I've seen enough boardrooms to know when everyone leaves with their jaw locked. Jenna came home that night stormy-eyed and full of blame. "These interns, they don't understand boundaries," she snapped. "One screenshot and suddenly I'm the villain in a story I didn't even write." I asked what actually leaked. She waved her hand. "Nothing bad, just tone, casual phrasing, some teasing. Out of context, maybe it read wrong. Brandon's tone is, he can be careless." That was the first time she threw him under the bus. It wouldn't be the last. Later that night, Brandon texted, "Screwed up a deliverable, reworking everything from scratch. Might lose the whole campaign. I can't breathe." I didn't answer. Not right away. The next morning, Ava invited us to a family brunch at their golf club. I was 5 bites into an omelet when she dropped it, smooth as butter. "So, are we staying in California for Christmas, or following the pattern of men who can't provide stability without their parents around?" She never looked up from her plate. I didn't flinch, just wiped my mouth and said, "We'll let you know." Jenna didn't defend me, didn't say a thing. That same week I started backing up everything. Hard drives, invoices, receipts. I opened a second safe deposit box at a different branch, transferred the oldest provenance slips there, and moved part of my early inventory to Dale's attic with his written permission. When I showed the contract to Trent, he called it boring gold. Mary kept things moving on the gallery side, quiet and steady. She added certificate numbers to every piece I'd ever sold, even tracked down 3 resales. Lita coached me through responses, how to sound firm without being brittle. "Never answer like you're lucky they asked," she said. "Confidence sells more than canvas." Then it all cracked. The gala client pulled the plug 2 days before the soft launch. The official line was, "Internal boundary concerns." Unofficially, everyone knew it was because of Jenna and Brandon. Martha held a staff-wide call, called it a pattern. "Inappropriate relationships affecting judgment," she said, then added, "Leadership should model clarity." Jenna walked out of the meeting like a statue, stone-faced, no words. Brandon? He looked like someone had deflated him. Later that evening, Jenna came home, poured wine without asking if I wanted any, and started laying out damage control like she was planning a rescue op. "We'll pivot, refresh the brand messaging, maybe shift him to back-end strategy." But honestly, I had no idea his emotional bandwidth was this thin. I let her talk. Next night, Brandon showed up at my door. Hoodie up, eyes red, throat raw. He didn't knock, just stood there, and I opened it before he could text. "I ruined everything," he said. "Sit down," I told him. He dropped onto the couch like his legs gave out. I handed him a bottle of water and turned on the ball game. We didn't talk for the first half hour, just watched the innings crawl by. Eventually, he whispered, "She said I was safe, that it was all fine." I didn't know what to believe. I didn't say the thing I wanted to, didn't ask the question that was burning the back of my throat. Instead, I said, "If you have anything in writing, messages, threads, anything, that explains who pushed what, save it." He looked at me sideways. "You mean for later?" I nodded. "Don't write back, just save it." He said okay, drank the water, stayed for the last 2 innings. When he left, I waited until the door clicked shut, then walked to the back of the apartment and opened the lockbox. I added a new tab, labeled it Comment 01. I wasn't gathering ammo. I was building clarity, and I wasn't stopping now. The morning I filed, the clerk barely looked up. Stamp, staple, motion to the next window. No speech, no permission, just paper. That was fine. I didn't need a ceremony. Trent had the packet ready. 48 pages, tabbed, labeled, organized like a missile manual. Jenna got served at her office 2 days later, right after her team finished a pitch. Grant Ellison, her attorney, came in loud and smug. His first letter called me emotionally unstable and accused me of hiding income, assets, and intentional non-participation in household development. That last part made me laugh out loud in the bakery parking lot. Trent didn't blink. He paced me through the replies like it was a language lesson. Every claim got an exhibit: bank statements, invoices, certificate logs, proof of separate accounts, and 2 full years of LLC tax filings. No drama, he said. Just paper. I sent them our marital property spreadsheet, everything listed, down to the spare keys and the blender we never used. Jenna's side pushed a story, said I was a dependent hanger-on, an under-earner with no trajectory who'd siphoned creative credibility from her network. Eva left me a voicemail, clipped and cold. Jonathan, take what's fair and move on. This doesn't need to be ugly. In their version of fair, I got the couch, the wedding dishes, and a polite nod on the way out. Instead, I moved into a 1-bedroom above a bakery on Jensen Street. The lease ran through my LLC, sub-licensed for art production. I logged the square footage, photographed the setup, and added the rental agreement to my binder. I took only what I could prove: my clothes, my tools, my notebooks, and the studio equipment I'd bought with LLC funds. I labeled the rest for inventory, even the lamp bulbs. Fenway and Cobers called the same week. They had a cancellation in the small room, asked if I could fill a 2-week solo slot. 15 pieces, Mary said. 3 new, 12 from inventory. Lita wants the wall to look serious. We priced them higher. Risky, but Lita didn't care. If it scares you, it's probably the right number, she said. 9 red dots landed the first weekend. A few days later, the second auction hit. JL038, Bridge over Refinery, estimated at $2,400. It hammered at $6,450. Mary handed me the result sheet. That's the market telling you to stand up straight. I scanned the result, labeled it AU002, and filed it behind AU001 in the safe deposit binder. Grant tried to drag me into a fishing trip, filed a subpoena for the location of my studio, claiming the artwork could be marital assets in concealment. Trent sent a 2-page reply with a neat index of already disclosed assets, timestamps, and statements from the gallery. Then added 1 sentence. For safety and storage reasons, the specific location of artworks not in active sale is confidential. The judge denied the request. That same night, Jenna sent me a midnight text. You're heartless. I built everything and you leech it. You'll never thrive without my network. I didn't reply, just screenshotted it, printed a hard copy, and labeled it TXT009. At my day job, I kept showing up, answered emails, hit deadlines, ate lunch at my desk. The older guys, ones who'd seen divorce up close, brought me coffee without asking. One afternoon, Pete from operations slid a folded scrap of paper across my keyboard. Keep the faith. Get it in writing. That was it. I taped it inside my sketchbook and kept going. Later that week, Lida pulled me into her office. She looked furious, but not at me. Someone tried to file a trademark application for J. Blake Lake. My stomach dropped. You serious? Application got kicked. Conflict with an existing registration. Yours, through the LLC. Trent filed it clean, full use cases, dated filings. But guess who submitted the new one? I stared at her. The contact email matches Jenna's personal assistant, she said. Sloppy move. I expected better. I thanked her, quietly. That night I locked up the bakery unit, double-checked the hard drive backups, and finally Finally, slept 5 hours without waking. No dreams, no clenched teeth, just sleep. I didn't feel like I'd won, but something had shifted. The whole fight wasn't over, not even close. But now I knew where my ground was, and I wasn't giving an inch back. Depositions started like a business meeting and turned into a 3-act play. Grant Ellison opened with a dramatic lean and a voice too loud for the room. "Did you ever plan to be transparent about your secret income, Mr. Reed?" I didn't look at him. I looked at Trent. "Please look at Exhibit 14, Trent said calmly, pointing toward a neatly stacked binder already marked and paged. Grant tried again, spun some theory about my paintings being marital creative property because Jenna had introduced me to a cultural circle. Trent didn't even blink. He turned to the court reporter and started walking through everything. My first P.O. box, dated cash receipts from hardware stores, LLC filings from 13 months before the wedding, and the lease on my first lockbox. "This isn't community growth," Trent said flatly. "This is preserved separation with documentary control." Grant huffed like someone losing a round of chess. Then Martha got called. She wore a navy blouse with no buttons and answered like she'd been waiting years to say it. "We've historically ignored office romances unless they interfered with client delivery." "And in this case?" Grant asked, leaning back. Martha turned to him without blinking. Jenna mixed personal and professional in a way that impaired judgment. I watched him wince. Barely. Then came Cole. He showed up in a muted blazer and carried a single sheet of paper. His statement, printed, signed, nothing extra. He didn't stammer, didn't stretch it. "It's not salacious. It's what I saw. And I took the photo because I was watching two brothers walk into something no one was stopping." He left without small talk. Walked back to the elevator like jury duty was over. Brandon went quiet. Nothing for 9 days. No calls, no texts. Then I got a package at the downtown P.O. box. Manila envelope, no return address. Inside was a 12-page letter, shaky handwriting front to back. He owned it. Said Jenna reeled him in, knew what buttons to push, and kept him off balance on purpose. Said she promised him cover if he stayed close, screenshots attached. Messages where she said, "I manage optics. Just trust me." The last page hit different. "I'm not evil, I'm weak, and I'm sorry. I hurt you, and it's not something I'll undo with one letter. I'm heading west, to Idaho. A friend has a cabin and a job offer. I need distance. Don't write back. Just let me get clean." I read it twice, filed it in my binder under BLET 001. Then I sat in the stairwell behind the bakery for a full hour, listening to the hum of the walk-in cooler and my own breath trying to stay steady. I forgave him. I really did. Doesn't fix a single thing, but it slows the bleeding. Eva called later that night. Sounded like she was speaking through porcelain. That letter, clearly manufactured. People will believe anything if it fits a story they like. I didn't respond. Just let the line go silent. Hank followed up 2 hours later with a call of his own. No warmth. "You're shorting your own life. Reputations are portfolios, and you've burned yours down to prove a point." I told him, "I'll be fine without your stock tips." Jenna tried to reclaim the narrative, posted photos of charity projects, tagged vague quotes about resilience and refocusing. 2 clients dropped her anyway, one citing internal stability concerns. Martha didn't make a scene. She just shifted Jenna to a quiet tech account with no major exposure. Brandon's keycard got disabled that same week. No announcement, no drama, just a red light at the door. Mary came by the studio with a thermos of tea. No small talk. She handed it to me, then sat next to the certificate stack without asking. We numbered CF023 through CF035 in silence, cross-checked the binder, and filed everything in acid-free sleeves. Trent sent me a text that night. Paper carries the day. I locked up around midnight. Didn't bother turning on the overheads. I sat on the floor of the frame shop, lights off, the smell of wood glue and primer thick in the air. I thought about my brother, about the photo, About Jenna's voice saying he finally has purpose. I thought about the version of me I used to be, someone who stayed quiet and tried to fix everything with patience. But the thing about building clean paper is it lets you cut clean lines. And I was almost ready for the next one. The courtroom was beige, quiet, and stripped of drama. No wood polish, no theatrics. Just a clock that ticked too loud, and a judge who made it clear from the first 5 minutes she had zero patience for posturing. Judge Audrey Whitebrent didn't like theater. She liked clean documents, full names, and full stops. Grant Ellison opened hot, again, raising his voice, pacing too much, tossing around phrases like strategic concealment and intentional obscurity. Whitebrent raised one eyebrow. "Mr. Ellison, stick to documents." I liked her immediately. He tried to paint me as some moonlighting scrub who lived off Jenna's work calendar, called my art a derivative product of marital proximity. Trent stood up, calm as a preacher. He walked her through the ledger, sales logs, invoice numbers, certificate chains, taxes filed under the LLC, lease agreements, and my W-2 forms from the day job. "Not a single transaction flowed through a joint account," he said. "No marital commingling, no ambiguity." Grant switched gears, started throwing around community standing and implied contribution. Trent flipped a tab and pointed to the receipts, dated before the wedding. Canvas rolls, stretcher bars, the P.O. box, the miter saw, and the first ledger sheet with the original JL001 scrawled across it in pencil. Then came Lida's affidavit. 4 pages. Detailed pricing structure, sales curves, her own sworn statement that Jenna had zero influence on market growth or visibility. Whitebrent leaned forward. "Mr. Reed, do you operate under the name J. Blake Lake?" "Yes, Your Honor." "When did you begin?" 2 summers before our wedding. Evenings. After my warehouse shifts." She didn't flinch, just nodded and opened a separate folder. "This is a valuation summary prepared by an independent appraiser," she said, flipping through. "Includes consignment contracts, regional auction results, and confirmed commissions. Mr. Ellison, do you have anything to dispute outside of status?" Grant mumbled something about the ecosystem of marital support. Trent waited, let the silence stretch, then introduced the emails, Jenna's own words, garage paint, hobby fumes, quit wasting nights, and the texts. "Why do you have to make everything ugly and industrial? It won't hang anywhere important." The judge's mouth tightened. She asked about the attempted trademark filing. Trent handed her the USPTO records, date of LLC registration, trademark application submitted the following spring, and the denied attempt filed by a contact email belonging to Jenna's assistant. Whitebrent didn't even look up. "The court is not impressed by games around intellectual property you did not create," she said. Then she moved to assets. She noted that my taxes were timely, that Jenna's financial disclosure left out a short-term brokerage account recently closed. I didn't look at Jenna. I looked at the wall clock. Jenna twisted her ring with her thumb. Martha sat 2 rows back, stone-faced. Eva stared at the ceiling like it owed her an apology. Hank took notes like he was auditing a budget cut. Then the ruling came. Blake Lake Projects, LLC is established as separate property. Artwork created with separate funds, separate materials, and under separate ownership. Separate. Appreciation driven by independent market value. Separate. The marital home will be sold. Proceeds divided per equity share. Division of remaining assets is adjusted in Mr. Reed's favor due to non-disclosure and reputational damage initiated by the opposing party. We stood. Jenna leaned in, voice like venom. "You planned this for years." I looked at her dead in the eye. "I built something while you were running down my name." She opened her mouth to say something else. Trent stepped forward, hand on my shoulder, and steered me out of the aisle like a fullback. We didn't look back. We walked out of that courthouse, and the world didn't change. Not really. Traffic still crawled, the sky still hung flat over Riverside, and my next frame still needed sanding. I moved my gear into a larger corner at Dale's, paid 6 months up front, no haggling. I added a better light rig and a small spray booth I found secondhand from a retired car detailer. Mary found me a used flat file on Craigslist, still solid, just needed a new drawer track. She labeled every drawer with clean black tape. "Your filing is better than most attorneys I've met," she said, squinting at one label. "That's because I hired a good one," I told her. At the consulting firm, I asked to cut down to 4 days a week. My boss didn't blink. "You hit deadlines. You show up. You want to flex time? Flex it." I didn't walk around calling myself an artist. Still liked knowing my paycheck would hit the second and fourth Friday every month, without drama. Jenna's firm put out a short, forgettable statement about internal transitions and leadership restructuring. Martha moved teams around like furniture. 2 legacy clients left. Eva and Hank vanished into safe charity board gigs and press releases no one reads. Brandon texted once. Just one photo, a mountain peak capped in snow, bright blue behind it, and one line. "One day I'll say this to your face. Sorry." I sent back a thumbs up emoji, and nothing else. Lyda booked me for a spring solo show. We priced steady, no flash, no panic, and a museum registrar reached out to borrow 2 bridge pieces for a traveling exhibit on American infrastructure. I signed the loan forms, made 3 copies, filed 2, and scanned the 3rd. Mary and I started walking after installs. Just coffee at first. No pressure. She was steady, not dramatic. She noticed loose screws before frames tilted. Never tried to fix me. Never once suggested I should photograph better. Trent closed the file with a crisp letter and a binder clip. Judgment entered, property accounted, distributions made. He stapled a list of keep forever documents and wrote in pen at the bottom, "Please stop reading legal threads on Reddit. You're done." I kept painting bridges and freight lines because that's my head. I didn't switch styles to chase approval. I didn't pivot to ocean scenes for sales. The name, real and not, sat on 2 doors now. Blake Lake Projects on paper. Jonathan Reed in the office directory. At gallery mixers or shows, I let people say whatever they wanted. I didn't correct them. Didn't offer backstory. Just nodded and went home. Another piece hit auction. Tripled the estimate. I logged it as AU003, filed the result slip behind the last 2, and took Mary out for tacos. We talked about canvas sleeves and how cold the shop got in February. Didn't bring up the money. I don't hate Jenna. I don't really think about her at all. I just don't have room for that. The court called the work mine. That's what I wanted. Not revenge, not applause. Just space to build something without someone sneering at the scaffolding. Before you head out, let me ask you something. Have you ever stayed too long in a situation just to prove you could handle it, even when it was breaking you down? If this story hit close to home, tap the hype to help it reach more people, hit subscribe and like. It's just 1 click, but it means a lot, and drop a quick comment below. Even just good story, or what part hit you hardest. Love you guys.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.